Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Just let me add my own welcome to the one that Sarah's just issued to this 19th Annual Learning and Teaching Conference. It's great to see everybody here. As our conference nears its 20th birthday, 19 this year, and we will need to give some thought as to how we mark that milestone next year, we should also recognise that we are in the 575th birthday year for the university, and importantly, the 140th birthday year for the Student Representative Council. I wasn't sure if you would all know that. So just think about that for a moment. 575 years of teaching at this university, mostly undertaken here at Gilmore Hill, after the university moved to this premises from its original home in the city centre. And 140 years of student representation formally shaping the education that we provide. It's a remarkable history and legacy, and it's perhaps something that for next year we can take a look back at the history of learning and teaching. And when we think of the pace and scale of change, even just in the last 5 years, it means that mostly everybody in this room has had a hand in shaping and responding to some of the most seismic changes in higher education. Actually, that says chances. Should say changes, but maybe it's also chances, opportunities. And in turn, shaping the university's story that participants of the 40th University Learning and Teaching Conference could potentially reflect on. This time, 6 years ago, we went into lockdown because of COVID pandemic, and that was in March 2020. And who would have thought that we could flip within a 6-week period to online assessment for many thousands of students, after having done none of that online assessment at all until that time, or very little at least. And who'd have thought we could pivot to remote teaching and learning for our whole student population, having up until that time, for around 569 years, been predominantly a campus-based university. And in addition to that, we moved to support students 24/7 across the globe to start, to continue, and to complete their studies. And since then, and especially in the last 2 years, we've also had major challenges in the funding landscape. We've had significant shifts in socio-cultural attitudes to higher education. We've had the arrival of generative AI in a form that's rapidly contesting many educational norms. And there's been some very public, often negative discourse from a range of sources, including political parties, towards the value of higher education. And yet, here we all are, eager to continue our commitment to students and to high quality learning and teaching, to student partnership, and to making a difference in the roles that we all have. There is no doubt that our sector is under tremendous pressure, and there's no doubt that most of the people in this room experience the ripples of that. But we have achieved so much, and there remains so much goodwill to do what's best for students and offer the best education that we can. Although I'm only at this sort of start of this introductory talk, I'm going to just reflect for a moment and ask that we all remember that our role in education is one of the most privileged positions we could hold and one of the greatest responsibilities we can have. Access to and participation in education is critically important. It's a life-defining experience and underpins everything we should be doing in our learning and teaching strategy and in our civic role, and in our role as a civic institution in this city. Our theme this year is inclusive education in a changing environment. Inclusivity is a theme we've pursued a lot in our conference in the last few years. And of course, it's one of our core university values and will continue to be in the new 2025-2035 strategy. It's one of those values we talk about a lot and in a range of contexts. And it seems axiomatic that inclusivity is important and to be pursued as a priority. And yet, let's be honest, it's not at all easy. There are so many facets to it. Inclusivity in terms of our assessment, inclusivity in terms of our learning spaces and supporting visible and hidden disabilities across our campuses, which with around 360 buildings, of which 120 are listed, is no small undertaking. There's inclusivity in terms of students with protected characteristics, as outlined in the equalities legislation, and inclusivity in terms of our multicultural university community, and so on. I was reflecting on the introductory presentation with Michaela Levesque at the 2023 conference, where we also focused on inclusivity, and at which we shared some of the statistics at the time about our student population. The volume who were commuting students and the many students with caring responsibilities, and our large population of students from areas where there are multiple forms of socioeconomic deprivation. Our student population continues to reflect that diversity and set of life circumstances, and in many respects, even more so. For example, our commuting student population has, by all accounts, grown in part because of the cost of living that so many students are facing, meaning that living away from home is simply not an option for them. Living away from home is the only option for them. We also know many students have caring responsibilities for their family members. It's well known that many students work long hours, often full-time, in order to afford to come to university, and so try to fit their studies around a range of commitments. Then, as I was sharing with colleagues just the other day, the data from UCAS concerning declarations of disability at the point of admission present us with an exponential growth in physical and mental health needs amongst our student population. When listed like that, our task of creating inclusive learning environments can seem overwhelming. However, I think it's important to reflect on where we've made really significant progress, and as such, the foundations on which we're building as we enter the next strategic cycle. Firstly, in terms of our physical learning spaces, we're meeting here in the James McEwan-Smith Learning Hub, which, as I've mentioned before, was designed with commuting students and new students in mind as a sticky building where students could dwell, feel comfortable, and study outside of class time. In venues such as this, students can enter and quickly find a seat without the awkwardness of the ends of the rows being blocked, a deliberate choice reflecting the sometimes unreliable nature of public transport that doesn't quite arrive on time, the parent who has children to drop off at school, the carer who has to take a family member to a healthcare appointment and is rushing to get to class, each of which contribute to that later than planned arrival. Feedback from students on this space and this building generally has been so positive, and from the data we've collected post-occupancy, our first-year undergraduates have been the most frequent users of this space, which is precisely what we had hoped. They are the students most likely to drop out of university, and so creating a space that they can identify with and linger in is hugely important. All of our new spaces here, in the other new buildings and in the Keystone that will open in a couple of years' time, are designed with the objective of supporting students to get to know their peers in the class and to make it easy to work in pairs or in groups. We really are so fortunate to have had this opportunity and investment in the student experience and at the scale we've had over the last 10 years. Another significant gain is our growth in lecture recording. We know that access to lecture recordings makes a huge difference to students, particularly, but by no means only, students with disabilities. If you want to know more about this, we have of course got our very own resident expert in the form of Emily Nordman and the publications she and colleagues have done on this topic. We've moved from an opt-in to an opt-out policy to a situation where in most learning scenarios, classes are routinely recorded and made available to students. The most recent data shared with us just last week shows that the total number of captures has gone from 16,721 during 2021-22 to 30,801 in 2024-25. For the current year, we're on track to meet or exceed that number from last year. That translates to just over 800,000 playbacks of those recordings just last academic year alone. This experience places us as the 4th highest in the Europe, Middle East and Africa region for Echo 360 use. Lecture recording supports students' learning, facilitates their engagement, offers flexibility in those periods where the demands of life accumulate and threaten to undermine a student's sense that they can keep up and participate as they would like. Access to lecture recordings helps create a more level playing field for a diverse student cohort. In terms of assessment, there's been a sustained focus on assessment redesign across the university, and not only an awareness of the legal anticipatory responsibilities we have towards students, but a growing engagement with our learning through assessment framework and the supporting resources to design more inclusive approaches to assessment. We know we have more to do, but we have many colleagues able to support in making effective and educationally well-informed changes to our assessments. And the demand for that advice and support from those who teach across the university is high. As we see in the Practice Enhancement Tool, the PET, short plug for the survey that's just been released, there's growing awareness of inclusive assessment and what it means, and growing confidence across the colleges in adopting inclusive assessment designs in the university. The PET survey launched last week and is open until the end of April, so all those of you who teach will have a link in your inbox if you haven't spotted it already. Please do complete the survey as it supports us to align with the Learning Through Assessment framework, which is a priority carrying through to our 2035 strategy. Overall, we're being asked for advice on assessment changes which, if we were to wind the clock back a few years, we would not have anticipated at this scale, and that's fantastic. We've also made a sustained commitment to working with the SRC on the student voice. Although the NSS results indicate that there is more to be done, the work of the Student Voice Working Group has been really important over the last 2 to 3 years, and we are fortunate to have a strong relationship with the SRC such that they can influence decisions at every level of the university, and they have given so much time to work with us on what student partnership and student voice could look like at Glasgow. We also have 10 fabulous student interns currently working across our strategic projects, co-creating content and resources and engaging with their peers to ensure that the work we're doing reflects and delivers what our students need. Some of the intern team presented at the most recent Learning and Teaching Committee, sharing their insights across the institution.
I really want to focus on what this means from a student-facing view. If we want to build a truly inclusive environment, we have to start by listening. Through the Student Voice Working Group this year, we have been pushing hard to flip the script. We are moving away from a purely top-down approach and focusing heavily on gathering meaningful feedback at every single course level. Our goal is to ensure that all students, especially those with different learning needs, have a platform and a voice to actively shape their own education. Because when we talk about inclusive education, we must first recognize what our student body actually looks like today. Students here are by no means a homogeneous group. Increasingly, students are presenting with disabilities, learning differences, or other complex additional support needs. Crucially, these identities and challenges aren't mutually exclusive. For example, students with caring responsibilities are also more likely to have part-time commitments. We are seeing a significant increase in student mental health challenges, heavily driven by academic workload, mounting student debt, and the absolute necessity of part-time work just to afford a basic living expenses. I want to be very candid here about the stakes here. The data across the sector tells us the hard truth. Students balancing these complex needs, whether they are carers, neurodivergent, or managing physical or mental health conditions, are statistically more likely to step away or opt out of their degrees than their peers. This is why approach to learning through assessment is so critical. The true inclusivity means moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach, designing alternative forms of assessments that support diverse learners from the ground up. We need to build flexibility and assessment choices directly into the curriculum. It is about evaluating a student's actual intellectual engagement, critical thinking, and real-world skills, rather than just their proficiency in taking high-stakes traditional exam. And let's be clear, true inclusion must be balanced with academic rigor and staff capacity. It shouldn't be an unmanageable institutional obligation that exhausts our educators, but a targeted, smart design of the inclusive learning environment from day one. When we embed flexible learning pathways and authentic assessments, we are just making reasonable adjustments. We are giving every student an equal opportunity to succeed, regardless of the complex commitments they balance outside of their classroom. Ultimately, the student experience is the absolute heart of the university life. When students, especially differently abled and neurodivergent learners, feel they genuinely belong, and when they see that their learning environment has been designed with them in their mind, it has a massive impact. It is often the deciding factor in whether they merely survive their time here or actually progress, thrive, and complete their education. Moira, I'll hand back to you to talk about some other achievements and how we carry forward this in this new strategy and conference today.
Thanks, Ayush. So just a few further reflections on some of the achievements of which we should be proud. Our SOTL community of around 500 colleagues would be one, and the championing of that SOTL, I should say, Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, just in case anyone was unsure of that title. Championing of that SOTL activity across the university would be another. Evidence is a really important catalyst for change, and we have an active community of colleagues better placed than ever before to inform our educational choices and to evaluate our decisions. The creation and piloting in just the last 2 years of the Embedding Employability Framework, which is so important for our student skills development, and the parallel development and launch of the Curriculum for Life initiative are evidence of the considerable support and enthusiasm from students and colleagues amidst all the other work we're engaged with across the university. As an indication of the level of engagement, I would also point to the fact that our 2-year-old Learning and Teaching Strategy Hub received over 100,000 views in 2025, and we recently celebrated the 2-year anniversary of our Learning and Teaching Strategy newsletter, which now reaches over 800 subscribers across the university. Those numbers are a testament to the engaging, colleague-led content you have all contributed, so thank you. This is a significant achievement considering where we were 2 years ago, and it's a strong foundation to support the publication of our new strategy. You will all have your own examples of what you're proud of in recent years, and I'm just scratching the surface really. Please don't think, however, that I am saying all of this for us to be self-congratulatory or to suggest that we don't still have a lot of work to do. Our student experience is not where we want it to be in terms of the NSS and other such indicators. We also know that we have some demanding programmes of change ahead and that are important in terms of improving the infrastructure, quality assurance, and curriculum coherence. And despite all of our efforts, students do not get the consistency of experience or response to their feedback that they expect. However, what I do see here at Glasgow is a willingness to change, a commitment to the learning and teaching strategy, and an appetite for cultural change. And that's down to those of you in this room and many others around the university who are committed to our educational mission and committed to our students. We are, of course, heading into the next strategic cycle with the imminent launch of the 2025-2035 strategy, and many of you have been involved in shaping that strategy and the learning and teaching element of it, so thank you very much for that. Much in that strategy will be familiar as we restate our commitment to our core priorities of curriculum for life, learning through assessment, and student skills and futures. When approaching the embedding of these initiatives, we must do so with inclusivity in all its dimensions in mind. A key message from the SRC over the last few years, and as Ayush has just reiterated, has been that we need to design into the curriculum all the skills that our students need to have if they are to flourish and fulfil their potential. We have to think very carefully and deliberately about how much we require them to do within, for example, a 20-credit course, noting that we are far more likely to over-assess or to over-teach than not. We need to recognise that the cumulative impact of this overness affects their ability to participate, their sense of achievement in terms of triumphing over their workload, and as a number of us found out during an SRC-led workshop last year, at times, assumptions that we make about student timetables fall some way short of the reality for our students. So from my point of view, thank you again for all that you do for students and in partnership with students. It really is a privilege to be part of the community here at the University of Glasgow and to share in the enthusiasm, commitment and aspiration of those of you in this room. I look forward to continuing to focus on the enhancement of student learning and teaching as we work together on the 2025-35 strategy. And with that, I shall leave the final words to Ayush.
Thank you, Moira. As we celebrate 140 years of SRC, it serves as a powerful reminder that student partnership is woven into every fabric of this university. But true partnership is about more than just having a voice at every table. It's about what we actually design together. As we look towards the 2025-2035 strategy, the most impactful innovations in learning and teaching won't just come from the committees. They will come from co-creating with the incredibly diverse students sitting in your classrooms right now. When we build our teaching and assessments around their lived realities, we do more than just deliver a degree. We empower them to truly belong, progress, and succeed. Thank you all for your unwavering dedication to our students, and hope you all have an inspiring conference today. Thank you.